Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Alien Scouts chilling report humans are more than they appear. Scout Tahoe stared at the blue-green planet through his vessel's viewing screen. His mission was simple: study Earth and report back to the Coven Empire. The Empire needed to know if humans would be easy to conquer. Tahoe's ship hummed softly as it maintained its position high above Earth. His six-fingered hand moved across the control panel. Each finger tipped with a sharp claw. The scales on his arm shimmered in the dim light. "Beginning scan," he said to himself. No one else was aboard his small scout ship. The Empire trusted him to work alone. After all, he had helped study 12 other worlds before they were taken by Coven forces. The scanner beeped as it collected data. Tahoe watched the information appear on his screen. "Humans have only reached their own moon," he noted. "They have nuclear weapons, but they are basic compared to ours. They fight among themselves often. They have no united defense system." He clicked his tongue against the roof of his mouth, a sound of disappointment. This will be too easy. Tahoe had expected more. The Empire only sent their best scouts to worlds that might offer a challenge. Perhaps there was more to these humans than his first scan showed. He guided his ship down through the atmosphere, using the cloaking device to hide from human detection. His target was a place called North America, in a region with thick forests and few settlements, the perfect place to observe without being seen. The ship landed silently in a clearing. Tahoe set up his base quickly. Special cameras extended from the ship, hidden in trees and rocks. Sensors spread across the forest floor, disguised as plants. Within hours, he had eyes and ears covering several miles in all directions. It didn't take long to find humans. A group of them arrived in large vehicles, unloading supplies at a nearby lake. Tahoe watched them with growing interest. "What are they doing?" he wondered as the humans set up fabric shelters. "This is not a military exercise." The humans gathered wood and started a fire. They sat around it, talking and making strange sounds Tahoe realized must be laughter. Some drank from containers, others cooked food over the flames. "They are so exposed," Tahoe noted. "No proper defenses, no weapons ready." He zoomed one camera closer. "And their bodies are so fragile." The Covens were a warrior species. Their bodies were covered in tough scales. They had sharp claws and teeth. They could see in almost complete darkness. Humans, by comparison, looked weak and soft. For 3 days, Tahoe watched this group. They swam in the lake, hiked through forests, and sat around fires at night. They seemed to be enjoying the discomfort of nature. It made no sense to him. He observed other human activities, too. His cameras caught a human male helping an elderly female walk along a trail. Another time, he saw a small group sharing food with a stranger who joined them. Most puzzling was when he witnessed 2 humans working together to free a deer caught in a fence, then letting it go instead of killing it for food. "Their behavior patterns are inconsistent," he recorded in his notes. "They show weakness by helping others who offer no advantage, yet they survive despite this." On the 3rd night, Tahoe prepared his first report to the Empire. His superior, Commander Jin Su, would be waiting for it. "Planet designation: Earth primary species. Human technology level: early space age. Threat assessment: minimal." Tahoe paused before adding, "Humans display unusual social behaviors that require additional study. They appear physically weak but show unexpected adaptability." He sent the transmission, knowing Commander Jin Su would be pleased with most of his report. The Coven Empire always looked for easy conquests first. Earth seemed to fit that category, yet Tahoe felt uneasy. Something about the humans bothered him. They were so different from any species the Covens had encountered before. The next morning, he decided to move closer to a human settlement. He needed to see how they lived in larger groups. He packed a small kit of observation tools and left his ship hidden. The forest was quiet as he moved through it. His scales shifted color slightly to match his surroundings, not perfect camouflage, but enough to avoid casual detection. As he neared the edge of the forest, he heard a loud crack. He froze, turning his head slowly toward the sound. A human child stood 20 m away, staring directly at him. The child had stepped on a branch, creating the noise. Tahoe remained perfectly still. His mission protocols were clear: avoid detection at all costs. If seen, retreat immediately. Never engage. The child took a step forward. "Hello, are you lost?" Tahoe's translator device captured the words and converted them to Coven language in his ear. The child thought he was another human, perhaps because he was partially hidden by trees. Before Tahoe could retreat, the child moved closer. "My mom says I shouldn't talk to strangers, but you look like you need help." As the child came nearer, recognition dawned on the young human's face. Eyes widened, mouth opened in surprise. "You're not human," the child whispered. This was a disaster. Tahoe prepared to activate his emergency transport back to the ship. His finger moved toward the device on his wrist, but then the child did something unexpected. Instead of screaming or running, the small human smiled. "Cool, are you from space? Do you have a spaceship? Can I see it?" Tahoe froze again, confused by this reaction. The child showed curiosity, not fear. This was not in any of his briefing materials about potential first contact scenarios. "Jamie, where are you?" A woman's voice called from beyond the trees. "Coming, Mom," the child answered, then turned back to Tahoe and whispered, "I won't tell anyone, but maybe we can talk tomorrow. I'll bring snacks." The child ran off, leaving Tahoe completely bewildered. He quickly retreated to his ship, his mind racing. This encounter went against everything he had been taught about how lesser species react to superior ones. Fear and awe were expected, not friendly invitations and offers of food. That night, he added to his report, "Human young display unexpected reaction to alien contact. Suggest possibility that humans may not respond to conquest in predictable patterns. Recommend further study before full invasion force deployment." Commander Jin Su's reply came quickly. "Continue observation. Focus on military capabilities, not social behaviors. Conquest fleet preparation continues." Tahoe stared at the message for a long time. The Empire was already preparing for invasion, but he couldn't shake the feeling that humans might surprise them all. Tahoe moved his ship closer to a large human city. His scanners told him this place was called Su. He needed to see how humans lived together in big groups. This would help him understand if they could fight back when the Coven Empire attacked. He landed his ship outside the city and hid it under special covers that made it look like a small hill. No human technology could detect it now. Then he activated his personal cloaking device. This didn't make him completely invisible, but it bent light around him so humans would only notice him if they looked very carefully. "Time to walk among them," he said to himself as he approached the city. Su was nothing like Coven cities. It was loud, colorful, and packed with humans. Tall buildings reached toward the sky. Vehicles moved in organized lines along paths. Humans walked quickly on raised platforms beside these paths, talking and looking at small devices in their hands. Tahoe recorded everything with the tiny cameras built into his eyes. He was careful to avoid touching the humans as he moved through crowds. His cloaking device wouldn't hide physical contact. "They built impressive structures for such a primitive species," he noted as he looked up at a glass tower that reflected clouds, "but nothing compared to imperial architecture." He spent his first 2 days learning the city's layout and observing human routines. He watched them work in buildings, eat in public places, and travel in their vehicles. Everything seemed orderly but inefficient by Coven standards. On the 3rd day, everything changed. Tahoe was walking down a busy street when he felt the ground move beneath him. At first it was gentle, but then it grew stronger. The whole street began to shake. A low rumble turned into a roar. Earthquake, he realized, accessing his knowledge of Earth's geological activities. Around him, humans stopped walking. Some lost their balance. Objects fell from building windows. A crack ran down the side of a nearby structure. For a moment there was stillness. Then noise erupted as humans began shouting. Some ran in panic. Others stood frozen in fear. This will be interesting, Tahoe thought. Let's see how they handle crisis. In Coven society, natural disasters were met with strict protocols. Citizens would follow pissed evacuation routes. Military units would deploy to maintain order. The strong would survive, the weak would not. This was natural law. But what TJO saw next didn't match his expectations. A human in a bright yellow jacket stood in the middle of the street and began shouting instructions. Others quickly gathered around him. The human pointed to different areas, and the group split up with clear purpose. More humans in similar jackets appeared. Some began directing people away from damaged buildings. Others checked structures for stability. A group set up a small station where injured humans were being treated. Tahoe followed a team that entered a partially collapsed building. Inside, they called out for survivors and listened carefully for responses. When they heard a voice, they worked together to move debris, forming a human chain to pass rubble outside. "Astonishing," Tahoe whispered as he watched them free a trapped human child. "They are risking their lives for strangers." Throughout the city, he saw the same pattern. Humans organizing quickly, helping others, working together without formal command structures. Small acts of kindness multiplied. People sharing water, offering comfort, creating shelter for those whose homes were damaged. By nightfall, Tahoe had seen enough to disturb him deeply. He returned to his ship and recorded his observations. Humans display unexpected crisis response protocols. They form spontaneous organization structures without central command. Their priority appears to be saving all members of their group, not just the strongest. This suggests capabilities our models haven't accounted for. 3 days later, after the city had begun repairs, Tahoe decided to investigate human military capacity. His scanners detected a training facility in a rural area outside the city. Using his cloaking device, he infiltrated the base. Security was simple to bypass with this technology. He positioned himself on a hill overlooking a training field where human soldiers were working through combat scenarios. What he saw troubled him even more than the earthquake response. The human soldiers faced a simulation where the rules kept changing. Their commanders would suddenly alter the scenario, adding enemies, changing terrain, removing resources. Instead of following fixed protocols like Coven soldiers would, the humans adapted quickly. They communicated in small groups, tried different approaches, and found creative solutions. When one strategy failed, they immediately developed a new one. No one seemed punished for failure. Instead, they learned from it and improved. "This is not how war is conducted," Tahoe muttered. "There are proper formations, established tactics, honored traditions of battle." But as he watched for hours, he realized the humans were preparing for exactly what the Covens planned to bring them: the unexpected. That night, Tahoe sent a new report to command. Human military training emphasizes adaptation over protocol. Their soldiers learn to function without rigid command structures. They practice for unexpected scenarios rather than perfect execution of standard tactics. This directly counters our invasion approach. Recommend comprehensive threat reassessment before proceeding with conquest. The reply came faster than he expected. Commander Jin Su's message was short. "Assessment noted but rejected. Your observations are interesting but irrelevant. Human technology remains centuries behind ours. Their weapons cannot harm our ships. Conquest fleet preparation proceeds on schedule. Continue gathering data on defense installations, not social behaviors." Tahoe read the message several times. The Empire was making a mistake. He knew it but couldn't make them see it. 2 days later, he witnessed the final piece of evidence that convinced him humans were dangerous. He observed a human training exercise where their soldiers practiced with captured enemy technology. In this case, old equipment from another human nation. Within days, they had not only learned to use it but had improved its design. They don't just adapt, he realized. They evolve. Sitting in his ship that night, Teju faced a difficult truth. The Empire was underestimating these humans. If they attacked with a standard invasion force, something unexpected would happen. The humans would not behave like any species they had conquered before. For the first time in his career as a scout, Tahoe wondered if he should do more than just report his findings. Perhaps he needed to actively convince the Empire of the danger. Or perhaps, and this thought disturbed him most of all, he needed to warn the humans about what was coming. Dark clouds gathered above the forest where Tahoe had hidden his ship. He had returned to his original observation post after sending his latest report to Commander Jinsu. The sky flashed with lightning, and thunder rolled across the hills. "This weather pattern was not in my forecast," Tahoe muttered as he checked his equipment. He had never seen such powerful electrical activity on any planet. The displays inside his ship flickered as another lightning bolt struck nearby. A warning light flashed on his control panel. Shield integrity compromised, the computer announced. Cloaking field unstable. Tahoe moved quickly to the maintenance controls. This was bad. If his cloaking field failed, his ship would become visible to human detection systems. His entire mission would be at risk. Reroute power from secondary systems, he ordered the computer. Maintain cloaking priority. The ship's lights dimmed as power shifted to the cloaking field. For a moment, everything stabilized. Then a massive lightning bolt struck directly above the ship. The impact was immediate. Every system in the ship overloaded at once. Sparks flew from the control panel. The cloaking field collapsed completely, sending a burst of energy outward that Tahoe knew would be detectable by even primitive human scanning equipment. "Emergency protocols engaged," he said, pressing his palm against the identity reader. This activated the ship's self-protection mode. The vessel would bury itself underground and repair its essential systems. Tahoe grabbed his emergency pack, a small device containing survival tools, communications equipment, and a personal cloaking generator. He needed to get away from the ship. If humans detected the energy surge, they would come looking. Rain pounded against his scales as he exited the ship. The forest was dark, but his eyes adjusted quickly. He picked a direction away from human settlements and began moving fast, his long legs carrying him effortlessly over fallen trees and rocks. Behind him, his ship hummed as it activated its burial sequence. By morning, it would be 10 m underground, hidden from human discovery. Tahoe ran through the night. His personal cloaking device wasn't working properly after the storm. It would hide him from casual observation, but not from dedicated search equipment. He needed to find somewhere to hide until he could repair it. As morning came, he heard something that made his heart beat faster, human voices and the sound of vehicles moving through the forest. They were searching for something, for him. They detected the surge, he realized. They know something is here. He changed direction, moving away from the voices. His tracker showed a river ahead. If he crossed it, the water might hide his heat signature from human scanners. The river was swollen from the storm, its waters brown and fast. Tahoe measured the distance, 20 m to the other side. He could make that jump easily on his home world, but Earth's gravity was different. Still, he had no choice. He backed up, then ran forward and leaped. His body sailed through the air, but he had misjudged. His feet hit the water 3 m short of the far bank. The current instantly grabbed him, pulling him downstream. Tahoe fought against the water, but a hidden rock struck his head. Pain exploded behind his eyes. His limb caught between two boulders, twisting unnaturally. As consciousness faded, he activated his emergency beacon, a signal that would reach his ship but was too weak for humans to detect from a distance. When Tahoe opened his eyes, he was no longer in the river. He lay on a soft surface in a small room. Light came through a window, showing simple furniture. This was a human dwelling. He tried to move, but pain shot through his body. His right arm was wrapped in some kind of material. His equipment was gone. "You're awake, good." The voice came from the doorway. A human female stood there watching him. She was small by human standards, with dark hair pulled back from her face. She wore blue clothing and carried a small container. Tahoe remained perfectly still. His translator implant was still working, converting her words to his language. But without his equipment, he had no way to cloak himself or call for help. The human approached slowly and sat on a small seat near where he lay. "My name is Ju. I found you by the river yesterday. You were badly hurt." Tahoe said nothing. His mission protocols were clear. If captured, reveal nothing. Attempt to escape at first opportunity, and if necessary, activate self-termination. "I don't know what you are," Ju said calmly as she opened the container she carried. It contained some kind of paste that smelled strongly of plants, but every living thing deserves care when it's hurting. She reached toward his injured arm. Tahoe tensed, ready to strike if necessary. "This might sting," she said, applying the paste to his wound. "It's medicine, it will help you heal." The substance did sting, but the pain quickly faded to a cool sensation. Teo watched the human's hands work. They were gentle but confident. She wrapped fresh material around his arm when she finished. You don't have to explain anything, Ju continued. I've always believed we weren't alone in the universe. I won't tell anyone if you don't want me to. This behavior made no sense. In Coven society, an unknown creature would be captured, studied, and if valuable, used. Kindness to unknown entities was not logical. It provided no advantage. Why? The word escaped before Tahoe could stop himself. Ju looked surprised, then smiled. You can speak, that's wonderful, she sat back. Why am I helping you? Because it's the right thing to do. Right thing, the concept didn't translate well. Yes, helping others when they need it. It's what makes us human. For 7 days, Ju cared for Tahoe. She brought him food after some experimentation to find what he could eat and changed his bandages. She talked to him, though he rarely responded. She never pressed him for information about where he came from or what he was doing on Earth. On the 3rd day, Tahoe heard vehicles outside. He tensed, ready to fight. Ju looked out the window. Military and scientists, she said quietly. They're searching the area. Someone reported strange lights during the storm. She pulled curtains across the window. Don't worry, they won't search here. This is private property, and I have some influence in the community. She was protecting him, an alien creature she knew nothing about. It went against everything Tahoe had learned about how species behave. By the 6th day, Tahoe could move without pain. His body healed quickly, faster than humans, he noted. Ju seemed fascinated by this but still asked no questions. That night, his emergency communicator, which he had hidden in his body cavity as per protocol, activated with a message. Scout Teo, report status immediately. Your observation period ends in 7 days. The invasion fleet departs in 30 rotations. Complete your reconnaissance or face punishment. Tahoe looked at the small human female who sat nearby, reading from a paper book. She had saved his life. Now he was expected to help destroy her world. For the first time in his life, Tahoe felt something new, doubt about the Empire's path and something else he couldn't name. Something that made him want to warn this human about what was coming. Ju, he said, his voice still rough from limited use. I need to tell you something important. She looked up from her book, eyes curious but patient. I'm listening. Tahoe sat at the small table in Ju's kitchen. In front of him was a device humans called a laptop computer. Ju had shown him how to use it before leaving for her work at the local medical center. She trusted him alone in her home. Now this information network is primitive but effective, Tahoe muttered as his clawed fingers carefully tapped the keys. Humans called it the internet. It contained vast amounts of data about their species.